installing the SuperATV EZ steer, not hydraulic steering, electric power steering for Can-Am X3. So I was looking for videos online of how to do this, and all of them took forever to get to the point. It was like people dicking around and all that stuff. Like, so I wanted something that was like quick, simple, straight to the point. So that's what this is. All right. First thing you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to take out this top dash piece, right? This top piece goes right in there. On this piece, you will have a torque screw there, there, and there, right? So one right here, and then 1, 2, 3. You also have one on each side of the steering column, right? Right there and right there, right? Those are all T30s, okay? Then, after that, you're gonna have to kind of like finagle that thing out of there and stuff. Oh, you also have 2 like push pin thingies right in here, right? You have to take those out. So, get that piece out and get it set down. You will have to unplug some of your switches and stuff like that, you know. No big deal. So, get that out, set it aside. All right, the next thing you're gonna have to do once you get that plastic piece out is you're gonna have to unbolt this basically like your steering column adjustment bolt. All right, you'll have to undo that. It was a 10mm on the passenger side, which actually had like a little plastic like cover thingy over the nut. Just use a flathead screwdriver, pop that off. And then it was a 4mm Allen. Okay, take that off. This thing drops right down, just like that. Next thing they want you to do is take the steering wheel nut off and take the steering wheel off, right? That was a 24mm steering wheel. Take that off. The next thing they want you to do, up here where this thing like pivots from, there were 2 bolts there, one on, you know, bolts and nuts, one on each side, right? 13mm on both. All right, so the next thing once you have that off is here in the very front, right? You have like a rubber cover thingy that goes over here. So there's 4 push pins, 2 in each corner, right? So take all those out so you can get that rubber dust boot thing off. Then you're gonna come up here to the front and you will have a 13mm nut and bolt pinching this you know, collar together around the steering rack input shaft. Undo that, and then after that, unplug your power steering unit, right? Undo the plug from there and then tape it all up really good because this will no longer be used. So I'm probably just gonna zip tie mine, you know, just up out of here, like out of the way kind of deal. After that, now we are basically ready to take the power steering unit out. So the way they have you do it is that you're gonna take this whole bracket, like this whole big bracket is gonna come out with the power steering unit in it, okay? So in the back, or I guess this would be the front of the car, right? You have 3 bolts up here, right? So you have 1, 2, and then down here is 3. Take those 3 off. All you have to do is take the nut off. Those are 13s. The back, like the bolt is actually captured, so you don't have to hold anything on the back side, right? So just get those 3 nuts off. You're gonna take these 2 bolts out. Again, the nuts on the back side are captured, so no worries. And then these 2 nuts right here, loosen these up. Like they say loosen them up. I found it easier just to take them all the way off. So when you do that, right, the front of this bracket will drop down, okay? And then you're gonna kind of have to move. So the front of it will drop down. Gosh dang it. So I guess like the side that's gonna be closest to you will drop down, but then that side, close to the firewall, which is the front of the vehicle, kind of just pop it out a little bit, and then the whole thing will come out. So you'll get the whole thing to come out, and then there are 3 bolts that are 13mm that hold the power steering, the stock power steering unit, to that bracket thing, right? So you'll be looking at the power steering unit, right, like this way, right? Like that's where the steering wheel bolts to. So this right here, this end is where it goes to your steering rack. So there's 3 bolts, dunk, dunk, and 1 right down there. Right, so take those 3 out, and then you can get this out of the bracket entirely. So then you will be left with that bracket that I just showed you that's now back in the car. So from there, depending on like the directions describe it, depending on like which year, there's 2 different bracket styles and stuff, and you may have to drill some holes, may not. If I had to drill holes, they send you a like drill template. It's a plate of steel that basically you bolt onto your stock, you know, bracket, bolt that on there, and then there's 3 holes that you may have to drill. If not, then they give you a different style bracket that I don't have with me right now, that you'll bolt in there. So then once you get those holes all drilled, you will then basically just start reversing the process, right? So get this bracket back up in there, you know, tighten the 2 nuts here, tighten the 2 bolts here, and then tighten the 3 nuts down there, right? Then you will slide your steering shaft through. So on the new steering shaft you're gonna get, one side actually telescopes a little bit. The side that telescopes, that's gonna be closest to the driver, right? The other side is what comes up here and gets bolted on to the steering rack. Next thing you're gonna wanna do is mount the ECU to the bracket. So make sure you do that out of the car because the bolts come in from the back side. And they tell you in the directions to tighten the hardware. They don't give you a torque spec, so I just threw some red Loctite on there and gave it a couple ooga doogas with my little electric impact. After that, they tell you to put the little clamps on the bracket. Right? Those little clamps, they tell you to put those on the bracket. Do not do that. Put the clamps on the tube in here first, then bolt your bracket in here. So the bolts on there, I use red Loctite everywhere, except the bolts on there, because they go into plastic, I'm not gonna use red because I'm worried if I need to get it off in the future, it's just gonna rip the little the insert out of the plastic. So I'm gonna use blue on there. But yeah, so then you're gonna tighten that stuff down. Then we can finally get on to mounting the actual power steering motor to the bracket. Once you have the ECU in and you've tightened down the 13mm bolts and the 4mm Allens, next thing you'll need to do is kind of a pain in the butt. You'll need to get the motor in here. So what you're gonna have to do is with one hand, finesse the motor into position, okay? Grab one of your bolts so you have it handy. Finesse the motor into position with one hand. Now with the other hand, reach under the dash, right, and grab your steering shaft, and you're gonna need to feed that up, you know, through the hole so you can, you know, basically get the steering shaft mated up to the motor. And then while you're still holding the motor, get your bolt threaded into at least one hole to hold it there, you know, and then you can tighten them all down. So those are all 15mm bolts. They send you 2 different 15mm bolts. They're the same length, the same size. It's just that one has like a serrated flange under it. That's the one that I used because it's kind of like self-locking in a way. They didn't really say which one to use because they're identical. So that's what I did. So yeah, and then tighten down that bad boy. We're on the home stretch now, so you're almost there. Okay, next thing you'll need to do is tighten up the pinch bolts on all the U-joint shafts, okay? Those are all 13s. I would suggest using red Loctite. Now, after that, you'll have to put the, you know, upper steering shaft and this like steering shaft support collar together. I just threw a little bit of grease on both O-rings in there. And then, you know, you'll basically slide this over it, slide this over the shaft, you know, and then don't forget your snap ring on there. Okay, after that, you'll feed your lower steering shaft, you know, splined end on there, right? And after that, it will basically bolt through these through this pivot point right here. So 13mm bolts and 13mm nuts on the inside. After that, again, I would recommend using red Loctite on that just because steering components, never good to lose steering. After that, you have your 4mm Allen and 10mm, you know, nut on the other side. You know, tighten that down. Then finally, you can tighten all the pinch bolts on here, right? So you have one right here, then you have one more like right in this area, and then up here you don't have one, that's all welded. So, one other thing, The reason why the wiring under here looks like complete trash is because this is the Hayabusa swap X3. So I'm trying to get all the wiring and stuff like that figured out and just get it to work before I make it all look pretty and before I make, you know, nice wiring harnesses and stuff like that, like you guys have seen me do before. So just know that is not the proper way to do wiring. That's just very, 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 very temporary for like running around the yard so I can test it and make sure it all works before we, you know, rip it all out and make it really nice. So, all right, back to the steering installation here. And the final thing on, like, you know, the main part of it is reinstall your steering wheel. So I have a quick release, you know, PRP steering hub. So that is essentially my steering wheel. But otherwise, 24 millimeter nut. Yes, it is a nylon lock nut. Technically, you're supposed to replace those every time you use them. Do any of us actually do that? No. So again, steering component, I'd probably throw some red Loctite on there. That's what I did. Now we're on to the wiring, which is sweet because you got plug-in connectors that can only go one place, and then you have power and a ground and your 12-volt switch. So you got your power and your ground wire, which are going to be run over to the positive and negative post on your battery. And then the white wire is going to go to the 12-volt key source that is on your auxiliary, like, you know, the three, oh my gosh, like the three studs there on your center console. So on the passenger side, right, you'll just grab power there. Or if you have other stuff on your car, some other place where you can grab 12-volt key power source, do that. That's where the white wire will go. The blue wire in the harness, not used. So then after that, all we got to do is we just got to throw this dash topper back on there. And after that, you go let her rip, tater chip. So like I said, hopefully that helps you guys. There were a lot of videos, or there weren't a lot, there were a couple videos out there, but they were way too long and drawn out. I just wanted like the quick boom, 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 boom. So hope this helps. Later. New SuperATV, what is it, EZ steering, power steering is installed finally. So installation was not that bad at all. And I cannot believe how light the steering is now. It's not even this good stock. Like, this is seriously worth the whatever it was. It was like $910 with overnight shipping and tax. This is way worth it. Like, well, we burnt the stock power steering motor out of the race car. It was, I don't know, way more than that. It was like 2 times that amount to get it replaced and stuff like that. Like for me to buy one, you know, and put it in and all that. And it's nowhere near that good. So yeah, so far, super impressed. For the, you know, 20 times I've turned the steering wheel and for the 0 feet it's ever moved, but just pretty stoked about it. So